This is a video about a lost Eminem video game. Sorry, I had to start with that so you know you didn't click on the wrong video before I go on a bit of a tangent. I love video games, obviously if you've seen my other videos, but my second love is hip-hop music. It's a strange story, but it all started when I was 12 years old. Smash for 3DS was coming out and I was really into it. I wanted to play it competitively and thank God I didn't, for multiple reasons. I started watching professional Smash Bros content all the time, and eventually I discovered this video, 600 Hours, a Young Link combo video. This video is kind of infamous nowadays, but that's besides the point. The reason this video is important to me is because of the background music that was chosen. BK Knapp's remix of Thug's Mansion by Tupac. Before this, I had grown up in a household that was very rap is crap. The only music I listened to was what my mom would play in the car, mostly 70s and 80s classics. But BK Knapp's Thug's Mansion remix was the first song I ever heard that truly clicked with me. I listened to it every day for months, and eventually I started to branch out to other songs. Through YouTube recommendations, I discovered Tupac's Me Against the World, which no doubt changed my life. I had to ask my mom if I could buy the CD, and she insisted on listening to the album and reading through all of the lyrics before letting me. But in the end, she did agree to let me buy it. About a year or so after that, I'm a cool, mature 13-year-old now. I was shopping at a Best Buy looking through the rap CDs when I spotted an album that had a particularly interesting cover. The whole image had a bluish purple tint. It's a full moon night, a man and his child are standing at the end of a dock. In the foreground, a car sits with its trunk open, and a person's legs are sticking out of the side. Many of you will have already pieced together that this is the cover to Eminem's major label debut, the Slim Shady LP. And thankfully, my mom didn't ask to listen to this one before I bought it.
I'm low down and I'm shifty. And if you hear a man that sounds like me, smack him. Then ask him where the fuck did he get his damn raps from?
Eminem is a man who needs no introduction. Whether you love him or hate him, it's safe to say he has cemented himself as one of the most popular musicians of the past couple of decades. He's the best-selling rap artist of all time and one of the best-selling solo artists across all genres. He's won 15 Grammys, 15 VMAs, and an Oscar. He's headlined 5 tours, had 2 books, and even starred in his own semi-autobiographical film, 8 Mile. But with all of the success, Eminem has strangely never had his own video game. Well, that's not 100% true. If you count phone games, he's actually had 2. Relapse Resistance and Shady Wars. But I'm not talking about casual phone games. I'm talking about hardcore experiences for real gamers on real consoles. Sure, you could say Eminem's amazing performance as Detective McVigar in 50 Cent Bulletproof counts.
And by the way, you're out of orange juice.
But I'm looking for a game solely about Eminem, an Eminem fan appreciation game, if you will. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, Eminem was at one point very close to having his own video game on the PlayStation 1 and Windows computers. The key word here is very close, as in this game was canceled. Initially, I planned for this video to be on the shorter side, quickly covering a lost media topic that I hadn't seen anyone else cover before, but the more digging I did, the more I found, and I quickly realized no one else would ever want to go this far. So without further ado, let's take a look at the history of Mixed TV Presents Eminem.
Smash the window, grab the Nintendo 64. When they sell out in stores, the price trip.
May 14th, 2003. The first day of the Electronic Entertainment Expo is being held at the Los Angeles Convention Center. For those of you who don't know what that is, since it's been dead for almost half a decade now, E3 was a large convention where all of the biggest names in the video game industry would come to announce new games and tech.
Ridge Racer! Remember that one?
Of course, the biggest names would attend almost every year, like Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and Sega, but smaller studios would also frequently attend, like Conspiracy Entertainment, a publisher and sometimes developer of games most would consider shovelware. It was at this first day of E3 2003 that Conspiracy would announce Mixed TV Presents Eminem. According to an IGN article by Chris Scantleberry, Conspiracy had inked a deal to release Eminem-related video games on all major platforms, and MixTV Presents Eminem was just set to be the first of many. Exclusive for the PC and PlayStation 1, the game would have consisted of 6 different modes of simple puzzle games involving Eminem and his music videos. Specifically mentioned are sliding and memory puzzles. The sliding puzzles were said to use, quote, special technology that allowed full motion video to be played independently on each piece of the puzzle. It's also mentioned that the game would have featured exclusive content, though it's unknown what any of this was. Billboard put out an article the same day, saying the game would have been 1 or 2 players with both cooperative and competitive modes, and would have featured 4 music videos, 2 of which were revealed to be My Name Is and The Real Slim Shady. Conspiracy also planned to release a censored and uncensored version of the game, which is confirmed by the ESRB having both of these listed in their database, although they refer to the game as MixTV Presents the Eminem Game, while all other sources just call it MixTV Presents Eminem. The ESRB also confirms it was set to release on the PC and PS1, despite multiple sources like IGN and PlayStation World magazine claiming it was a PS2 game. This misconception was more than likely caused by how odd it was to release a game on the PS1 in 2003. For contrast, the actual final PlayStation 1 game released in North America was FIFA Football 2005, which came out a little over a year after MixTV was supposed to come out. At this point, you're probably wondering, what is MixTV anyway? Well, MixTV was Conspiracy's name for this new line of games. They actually plan to make more games like this for other artists after Eminem. Scott Steinberg, for the July 2003 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, specifically said these MixTV games would be PS1 offerings. Conspiracy's marketing director Vince Matthews said, "This is the first in a line of fan appreciation titles that will ship under the MixTV brand. We're positioning the brand as a fan appreciation product. It's the perfect match between a license and an audience. MixTV gives fans a chance to be part of the show." Now at first, a line of simple puzzle games releasing on the PlayStation 1 in 2003 sounds incredibly uninteresting, and it is a strange idea, but it starts to make a little more sense when you find out how much Conspiracy was planning to charge for these games. Billboard claimed the game would be sold for $14.99 or less, while EGM and IGN both said it would sell for about $9.99. In the 2000s, regular CD singles cost about $5 each, so getting 4 music videos for $10 plus alleged bonus content doesn't seem like the worst deal in the world in retrospect. One more thing I want to mention before I start digging deeper into all of this is that Billboard and PlayStation World both mentioned that Conspiracy was also planning a 3D action game based on Eminem's short-lived cartoon, The Slim Shady Show. Billboard specifically attributes this information to Vince Matthews, though there is no further information on this game anywhere. It's likely it was canceled before it got past being anything more than a concept. That's about all you'll find for surface level information on MixTV Presents Eminem, but such a low amount of information could never satisfy an Eminem expert such as myself, and from this I've got a few leads I'm willing to chase down. So it's time we start.
Hell with PlayStation, I'm still on my first man, I'm from Zelda. Nintendo bitch, run, jump, punch, stab.
First, I want to look into these 4 music videos that were going to be in the game. Like I mentioned earlier, Billboard had confirmed that 2 of them were My Name Is and The Real Slim Shady, which leaves room for 2 more. To Eminem enthusiasts, these songs will perhaps stand out as being lead singles from their respective albums. Eminem would typically have these silly, lighthearted songs be the lead singles. My Name Is, The Real Slim Shady, Without Me, and Just Lose It are a few examples. Now, by the time this game was in development, I have reason to assume the Eminem show had been completely finished and all of its music videos released. So everything up to Sing for the Moment is fair game to have been featured in MixTV. Based on the pattern of lead singles being in the game, I strongly believe Without Me would have been one of the 2 remaining songs. But what about the last one? Well, as much as I really would have liked it to have been Superman, it was almost certainly Lose Yourself. Actually, now that I think about it, solving a Superman puzzle would have probably been kind of uncomfortable. There are definitely strong arguments that can be made for Stan being in there, or maybe even cleaning out my closet. But to me, nothing makes more sense than Without Me and Lose Yourself. In March of 2003, while MixTV was in development, Lose Yourself won an Academy Award for Best Original Song, and it went on to be a career-defining song for Eminem. Now let's look into something that's been biting at me. Was this game actually shown at E3? This question first came to me when I wondered, how it was announced at E3. The only way I could think of them announcing it was either at like a workshop or a smaller conference, or they had a booth and they spoke about it there. So first I wanted to check if Conspiracy or someone from Conspiracy had been a part of any of the many workshops or smaller conferences they held at E3. So I found an archived version of E3's website from 2003, and that had a list of all the speakers for that year. And I searched for both Conspiracy and its president, Cyrus Amadi, and came up with nothing. At this point I'm confident they had to have had a booth then. So my next step is to find a map of all the booths at E3 2003 and look to see if I can find Conspiracy. Luckily, Sega Retro had an archive of maps for all of the halls that year. There were 5 halls in total: South Hall, West Hall, Kentia Hall, Petrie Hall, and Concourse Hall. South Hall and West Hall were huge and mostly featured big companies like Nintendo, Sega, Sony, Microsoft, Ubisoft, Capcom, Take-Two, THQ. SpongeBob himself was there with his house! In comparison, Petrie Hall and Concourse Hall didn't have that many booths, but Kentia Hall was huge and mostly had booths for smaller studios, so I figured searching here was my best shot. And I can't tell you how many times I combed over this map trying to find Conspiracy. It just wasn't going to happen, so I had to change strategy. I thought that there must be some sort of guidebook they made of every booth that was at the convention and where they were located, and that's when I found my saving grace: the Prima Games E3 2003 directory book, which thankfully was fully scanned and archived by the Video Game History Foundation. This directory led me to discover that not only was Conspiracy at E3 2003, but they were actually in the South Hall the whole time. The directory says Conspiracy was at booth South 700, but if we look at the map we found on Sega Retro, that's marked as being Natsume's booth. But you see the giant glowing 4 above it. Well, silly little LimeJinjo didn't realize that 4 meant 4 different booths were sharing the South 700 space that year: Natsume, Crave Entertainment, SVG Distribution, and Conspiracy Entertainment. The directory also lists Mixed TV Presents Eminem as a game exhibited for both PS1 and PC. Now we know that Conspiracy had a booth at E3 2003, and where exactly it was located, but was Mixed TV Presents Eminem actually shown there? I believe so. In Electronic Gaming Monthly's July 2003 issue, Scott Steinberg specifically used the wording, "The publisher will show off PS1 budget title Mixed TV Presents Eminem." And in their August 2003 issue, Sean Baby wrote that on the first day he found Crave Entertainment's booth, and listed among their upcoming releases was a puzzle game based on rap star Eminem. We now know that Crave and Conspiracy were sharing a booth that year, so I believe Sean Baby was confused and thought Eminem was with Crave. I'm fairly certain Crave had no part in Mixed TV, as it wasn't featured in their press kit CD from that year. Billboard also said in their article on the first day of E3 that the game was, quote, expected to debut today at E3, which leads me to believe it is possible it was physically there. Now that we know where it was and that there's an inkling of a chance that it was actually shown off there, all I have to do is find footage or photo of Conspiracy's booth, and maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to sneak a peek at Mixed TV. There's just one issue. E3 2003 was an insanely huge year. Here are just a few highlights from that showing, in no particular order. Ahem. Wario World, WarioWare, weird fucking build of Chibi Robo, F-Zero GX, Kirby's Air Ride, Mario Kart Double Dash. You guys had 3 racing games that year? Sonic Heroes, Dragon Guard, SVC Chaos, the Game Boy Advance SP, PSP, and N-Gage, Ninja Gaiden, Metroid Prime 2, Half-Life 2, Halo 2, The Sims 2, Soul Calibur 2, Pikmin 2, Silent Hill 3, Metal Gear Solid 3, Rogue Squadron 3, Resident Evil 4 Hookman version, and more. Also, E3 used to have, quote, booth babes, which were provocatively dressed women that companies would hire to float around their booths. About 90% of all photos relating to E3 2003 are of these booth babes. So now you'll begin to understand why Mixed TV wasn't high on many people's priority lists. There are thousands of photos and videos of E3 2003, and while video is a lot harder to search through, I looked at every photo I could find on the internet for several hours, just to see if anyone took a photo of Conspiracy Entertainment's booth that year. And it was on this Angel Fire blog by Service Games, which hasn't been updated since 2003, where I found this image titled Random E3 Floor, which has the only glimpse of Conspiracy Entertainment's booth I could find across the entire internet. You can see Crave's booth as well, showing off their games But Ugly Martians and EJ Club World, but in the foreground is a desk. Behind it are what I believe to be Conspiracy employees speaking with the exhibition viewers, which is probably how the game was announced and the details we've seen in the articles were given. To the left, we can see a stand for Conspiracy Entertainment, which has one display visible, showing a photo of what looks like a light-skinned lady with long brown hair, possibly wearing glasses, standing in front of a background that's half bluish-white, half brown. To make sure this wasn't related to Mix TV, I rewatched every Eminem and D12 music video and tried to match this picture any of them, to no avail. So unless this image is showing some of the fabled bonus content, I don't believe this was Mix TV footage. Well, if we can't actually see the game, maybe we can imagine it with the help of some visual descriptors. IGN's page for the game has a description that reads, "Music videos are viewed on a jumbo screen and must be correctly reassembled before the video ends." While PlayStation World said in their September 2003 issue, the game sets the player a series of puzzles that have to completed before the hip-hop track on the in-game jukebox fades out in a hail of swear words and shoutouts. And as well as simple memory challenges, match up the two photos of Eminem giving the one-finger salute, match up the two photos of Eminem bearing his arse. Players will also be required to unscramble images of the great man by sliding around fragments of a photo. With this information, I was able to make this mock-up image of what I imagine it could have looked like. IGN also said it was going to have vibration support, so imagine a DualShock rumbling in your hands while you look at this image. It's possible we got these witness testimonies because review copies were sent to journalists, or it could be that it really was at E3. Nonetheless, I'm glad we have them, but I still hope to see the real thing someday with my own eyes. Lastly, I want to address the game's alleged release date. PlayStation Magazine's July 2003 issue said it was due out that summer, while Electronic Gaming Monthly's issue that month was more specific, saying it was due in June. Then why didn't it come out? Conspiracy's president Cyrus Amadi said, "There's no bigger artist in the world right now than Eminem, and we're very excited to be a part of the phenomenon." So, what went wrong? What could have possibly happened to have this game cancelled so close to launch?
You will call you a lawyer, file you a lawsuit, I'll smile in the courtroom and buy you a
Oh, that makes sense. Eminem is no stranger to lawsuits. In fact, he has a rather storied history with them, spanning his entire career. He has sued or been sued by targets such as his mother, his childhood bully, and just recently, Mark Zuckerberg's Meta, among many others. So the rest of this story shouldn't come as any surprise. July 22nd, 2003. A little over 2 months after Mix TV was announced, and about 1 month since EGM's expected release window for the game. Conspiracy Entertainment files a lawsuit in the Supreme Court of California, County of Los Angeles, against Eminem's licensing agency, Bravado International Group, and his management company, Cousins Entertainment, alleging fraud and deceit, conspiracy to defraud, breach of contract, and breach of covenant of good faith and fair dealing, seeking no less than $5 million in damages. Bravado and Cousins had gone back on their deal with Conspiracy, allowing them to produce games based on Eminem, and Conspiracy claimed that they had done so unlawfully, theorizing that they had done it to seek a more lucrative deal elsewhere, with a more popular video game company. Conspiracy's chief financial officer, Keith Tanaka, was quoted as saying, "We were not aware of any problems until we started getting some press on our new product. Then we started hearing rumors about Eminem negotiating a better deal with Rockstar Games, or some other big video game publisher. Apparently, our deal must have been in the way because there was no other reason for Bravado and Cousins to stop us from introducing a video game that was approved before the contract ever got signed." According to IGN, that last bit is Conspiracy admitting no contract had ever been signed, but this is contested by MTV writer Corey Moss, saying Conspiracy claimed that Eminem himself had signed a contract in February allowing Conspiracy publishing rights, which had now been reneged. Game Industry also claimed there was a contract that was reneged on, but I'm a little more skeptical of them since their article also claims Conspiracy was suing Eminem directly, which is untrue, as well as claiming that the contract was reneged because Eminem was getting, quote, more popular. I find that last claim dubious since by the time Mix TV had entered development, The Eminem show had already been out for several months and had sold over 1 million copies in its first full week of sales, so I don't believe growing popularity was the biggest issue. I can't complain too much though, since IGN's article had its first sentence end saying, "They broke the hell out of a contract, yo. Now where'd that cash be at?" The company asks, legally. Oh my god. It's important to note that Eminem himself seemed very detached from the lawsuit, with conspiracy president Cyrus Amadi even saying, "We hope everyone can arrive at a quick resolution now that Eminem is fully aware of the problem." Unfortunately, Eminem couldn't be their Superman, and the lawsuit would proceed without his involvement. September 16th, 2003, Bravado filed a cross-complaint, in other words, a legal rebuttal, against Conspiracy, alleging breach of contract and seeking damages of $50,000 plus interest, attorney fees, and costs. December 24th, Conspiracy files an amended complaint, adding on to their lawsuit against Cousins Entertainment, adding claims of torturous interference with contractual relations and torturous interference with prospective economic advantage, marking the worst Christmas ever for whatever poor sap was in charge of this case at Cousins. Though good news would soon come, as at some point the claims of conspiracy to defraud and torturous interference with prospective economic advantage were dismissed against Cousins. Cousins would strike back with a vengeance on April 9th, 2004, filing a cross-complaint against Conspiracy, alleging unauthorized use of Eminem's name, image, and likeness, seeking damages in excess of $10 million, plus any money they had made from the game, punitive damages, attorney fees, and costs. As late as March 31st, 2005, Conspiracy had reported that they were continuing forward with all of their claims on Bravado, and with just the one claim of torturous interference with contractual relations on Cousins. Eventually, on July 15th, 2005, there was a stipulation and order of dismissal with prejudice, signed by the judge and submitted by the attorney for either Bravado or Cousins. I'm no law student, but as far as I can gather, this basically means that they all decide to settle out of court. One of the defense attorneys submitted this to the judge signed it, and Conspiracy isn't allowed to sue them again for the same reason. And that's all I could find on the lawsuit. There are no public records of what happened after that or how they settled, and I couldn't find any public comments from anyone at Conspiracy, Bravado, or Cousins regarding the case after it had finished. Actually, it's difficult to find much on Conspiracy as a company at all. Who were these guys?
Goddamn, it's all a plan devised by the man. It's a conspiracy against fake shit.
Conspiracy Games, later operating under the name Conspiracy Entertainment, was founded in 1997 and operated out of California, with the aforementioned Cyrus Hamadi and Keith Tanaka serving as CEO and CFO respectively. Conspiracy would end up to be a significant studio, not in terms of quality but more so in quantity, being credited on 76 games to date. I've actually mentioned some of their work twice before in my videos, as they published the Wii version of the infamous Ninja Breadman in North America, and they were also set to publish the cancelled Tiny Toons Adventures Defenders of the Universe developed by Treasure. Despite all of my research, there really isn't much to chew on in regards to Conspiracy's history. It doesn't seem like they were a very public company, despite literally being a public company. In July 2004, almost exactly 1 year after the lawsuit with Bravado and Cousins began, Conspiracy had accrued a debt of $2,438,188 that they had owed to German-based company Swing Media for undisclosed reasons. However, this debt was forgiven when Swing started filing for bankruptcy. According to Game Industry, Cyrus Amadi was quoted as saying, "We have spent the last 12 months negotiating to have this debt removed from our balance sheet." Conspiracy would keep publishing games for the next few years. Some of their more notable titles, for better or worse, are Bangai-O, Enclave, Ninja Breadman, Anubis II, Mythmakers, Trixie in Toyland, Rock'n'Roll Adventures, Garfield Lasagna World Tour, and Panzer Tactics DS.
And the game award goes to...
In a quarterly report from November 2010, it was documented that the company had a capital deficiency of $9,020,446, with significant portions of this being attributed to consulting and attorney fees. I couldn't find any information about a bankruptcy or dissolution from the American branch of Conspiracy, but findandupdate.companyinformation.service.gov.uk says that the European branch began dissolution in October of 2010 and finished in February of 2011. It's assumed the American branch stayed alive slightly longer, as their final game, Emily the Strangeress, wasn't released until May of 2011. The last recorded date their website was still up was October 27th, 2012. Don't feel too bad though, because while I couldn't dig up anything on Keith Tanaka, I was able to find some breadcrumbs of where Cyrus Amati has been. On May 14th, 2019, exactly 16 years after the announcement of Mix TV, Cyrus Amati launched a financially successful Kickstarter for a board game adaptation of Space Invaders, which seems to have garnered mixed reception.
This game needed more development. It doesn't run very smoothly in my opinion. The cards are tiny, and I don't know who it's for.
Currently, based on one Facebook post I found, it seems like Cyrus is working at Rocket Games, which is notable right now for being responsible for the physical copies of the remaster of Croc Legend of the Gobos. And that's everything I could find on any former conspiracy employees. Well, except this one guy who was so important,
I went to John's rave with Ron and Dave and met a new wave blind babe with half of her head shaved.
Dave Hoffman has been in the game industry for quite some time. According to an interview he did for the Video Game Collecting podcast, he got into game development after his friends showed him Ultima 2. He worked at Chemco in their customer service department for a while, before eventually moving on to companies like American Sammy, Data East, Playmates, THQ, and he even held an executive producer role at Square Enix for about half a decade. From 2000 to 2007, Hoffman was an executive producer at Conspiracy, and among the 56 games that Moby Games credits Hoffman on, we can now add a 57th to that list. Mix TV presents Eminem. Dave is actually quite open about having worked on Mix TV, mentioning it both on his Facebook and LinkedIn pages. But I wouldn't have been able to find this info without the efforts of documentarian Edward Payson, who interviewed Hoffman in 2023 for the upcoming second part of his documentary, Rarity, Retro Video Game Collecting in the Modern Era. The full interview with Hoffman is still yet to be released, but Payson uploaded a short clip of it to Instagram and TikTok in late 2023 and early 2024, which gives us a wealth of information and some of our only leads. The very first frame of the video is Dave proudly holding a CDR encased in a WADA-graded plastic tomb. The bottom of the disc seems to be dated June 3rd, 2003. A little bit into the video, Hoffman comments, "In 6 months, I was able to design this game, produce it, and gain Sony approval for retail distribution." This information leads me to the assumption that the game began development in December 2002 or January 2003, which is why I said earlier in the video that we could reasonably assume all of Eminem's music videos before Mosh were candidates to be in the game, since Superman and Sing for the Moment would have released during the beginning of development. The clip ends with Hoffman saying he's sad the game will never release, and that he would be willing to part ways with it if Eminem himself were to ask for it. Eminem stans will know that he is actually a hardcore gamer, holding a high score of 465,800 in the original Donkey Kong. However, Eminem also said on his 2013 song So Far, "Hell with PlayStation. I'm still on my first man on some Zelda. Nintendo, bitch. Run, jump, punch, stab." So his gamer status remains unclear, as does whether he would ever take Hoffman up on his offer or not. I reached out to Dave Hoffman asking for an interview, but so far I've received no reply. I will make an update video on that if he gets back to me. For now, we can seek solace in the fact that when Payson's full documentary releases, he stated it will feature footage of the game. So if nothing else, the hunt is not completely over.
Every time I reminisce, yo, I miss my past, but I still don't give a fuck. Y'all can kiss my...
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the long and storied history of Mix TV Presents Eminem. When I first started working on this video, I thought I'd make something short, like around 5 minutes. But I dug too deep, and saw too many things, and eventually decided that I wanted to chronicle it all. Because seemingly no one else has dared to go as far as I have, and never will. During writing, I discovered that Oddheader spoke about this game briefly in a video he put out a few months back called 7 Lost Video Games That Should Never Be Found, where he claims no one is looking for it, not even Eminem fans.
Though it appears not many are searching for it, not even Eminem fans.
Well, LimeJinjo is looking for it, though I've hit a bit of a dead end for now. Unless another copy is found, the only way I can imagine the game getting released is if Eminem got Dave Hoffman's copy. But I doubt Eminem even knows about any of this.
Oh my god, that was a really good video. I think I'm gonna press the release Mix TV Presents Eminem button that's been sitting next to my desk this whole time, all these years, these 25 years, 20-something 5 years. It's been sitting next to my desk. I think I'm finally gonna press it now, because my favorite YouTuber under 500 subs, LimeJinjo, put out a video about my game. I think I'm gonna